Alrighty folks, so basically Wizards kind of have released officially all the spoilers from Ixalan from the next autumn set. Basically there was some theft and some uncut shit with unclear imagery was spoiled, and now they confirmed it, and now we have good resolutions of all of those foggy cards, so now we actually get to see properly what it was all that about, and let's review them. So they're in color order, and oh my, like there are a bunch of bombs in here, definitely. So Ashes of the Burnt, the name, so it reminds me of about Rest in Peace, that enchantment, and well, it's kind of a mixture between Rest in Peace and Gravedigger's Cage, I guess, and then you get a bonus ability on top of that, even though I would much rather have a bit of more powerful effect that synergizes with the first line of text, with the first sentence. But so well, it's still a good card. I don't know how much we're gonna need that in standard, but there's all the Embalm, Eternalize, and stuff like that. And perhaps there is still yet something crazy to see in Ixalan that might actually remind us about this card. Bishop of Rebirth, well, it's decent. Apart from the creature type, there's not that much that excites me about this one. Well, it's a value card, but I think it's a bit overpriced in terms of mana cost, but yeah, it's a value generator. It's not quite Sun Titan level by any means. It might do stuff. Well, it depends if we get enough of creatures with cost 3 or less that actually have powerful enter the battlefield triggers. Other than that, not super excited about it. Ceratops, well, 7 mana, next. Sunwing, well, basically it's kind of like Talia, except that non-basics come untapped if they can, and instead of 3/2 we get a 2/3, and instead of first strike we get flying. And I would say I would much prefer to have Talia than this, but Talia rotates, and the key ability is still quite powerful, so we might just content with this one, but I'm not too happy about it. Marvin, well, if there will be a tribal deck around this creature type, then it sure will be in there, and it looks like for Vamps the deck color will be white and something. It's kind of odd to see the representatives of this creature type being this color mostly. It's really weird, but well, it's a fantasy world after all. And yeah, the card is good, though it's a legendary. If it wouldn't be legendary, I think it will be a really good format staple for aggressive decks, but other than that, it's just gonna be cool. Actually, you don't need to put it in a tribal deck necessarily, because he triggers himself. So that would be cool. Priest of the Awakened Sun, well, it's an instant card, but unless we're gonna see some really powerful dinos, then I don't think it's worth really thinking about it. Sanguine Synchroman's also a cool card, but I don't think it will see standard play, even though the card itself is okay, but it's not the kind of card that's you typically need in standard. Just doesn't do anything apart from gaining life, so which is kind of boring. So the Wreckage, well, it's interesting because it's instant and it's only 4 mana. But the fact that they get a bunch of basics in a lot of matchups is kind of irrelevant. I would say it's a good sideboard card, at the very least. And the Exile clause is pretty relevant. So yeah, I'd say really good cyber card, potentially fine. Well, let's just put it this way: if you're playing with this card in a control deck, against an aggro deck. You don't really care how many lands they have, as long as you just contain the board and stay afloat. But then, okay, and if you're playing with this card in control against control, then they're not gonna get more than one land, which is bad, but not that bad. It's like Path to Exile kind of thing. So I suppose it's good main deck, actually. If you think about it, the more you play out the scenario with this card in your mind, then you actually start to realize that it's actually a good main deck as well. Takali Honor Guard. Another pretty good Hate Bear is basically the Torpor Orb on a stick. 1-3 is not their aggressive stats, but that's alright. We've seen, I mean, well, of course, would much more prefer it to be something like a 2-1, perhaps. But 1-3 will do, because having this on the stick is actually a big deal for only 2 mana. And it has a relevant creature type, actually. So yeah. I don't think how much it will, I don't know how much it will actually matter in standard, but in eternal form it's bound to be a good option to have around, because if you're an aggro like Monoway Haybears type of deck, then you probably don't want just an artifact that doesn't do anything else, and having this effect on the stick is much better in a deck like that. Canada adaptation, well, I don't think it's gonna be really a thing. If it's gonna be a thing, and then for merfolks, so it just makes them a certain type, and that's basically it. That doesn't seem that good at all. Saboteur, it's not quite merfolk looter, but it's close. It's just, I like how flexible it is, because you can attack, you can pay, you don't have to pay, etc. But yeah, be careful. You probably have to make it unblockable before you step into the clear blocker step of the turn. Yeah, good card. It's just hard for me to picture a deck that would want it, but we don't know the whole set yet. And yeah, maybe in control mirrors that would be a pretty cool thing. Have some cheap threat that also lets you loot. Might be a fine. It's a good card, but like as for where it will end up, it's hard to say. Right now, the future doesn't look too great for this card, but we'll see. The Siren is actually pretty interesting. Because of the flash, I think it will be a really good staple. It doesn't matter, it's also part. The creature type bonus is probably irrelevant for a card like that in this color, so yeah. If there will be a tempo deck like a new blue-white flash deck, then it's probably gonna be in it. In Tracing Nology, well, let's look at it this way. For 4 mana, it's basically Threads of Disloyalty, which still makes it worse than Threads. But for standard, it might be a real thing, even though most threats will actually end up costing quite a bit. So if you take away a free drop, that's like a mind control, which is okay. So it depends. So the playability of this card depends on the environment and the meta. If there will be decks that with a relatively low curve, then yeah, that's gonna be a thing. And then Heralds, yeah, card's gonna be good, but with this kind of color pie shift, I wonder where it will end up. I know, actually, it's not gonna be a tough task because you already have Timur energy, and between Cobb and Hydra and a bunch of other stuff and so on. What else gets counters? Well, Cobb and Hydra is already kind of enough, I think, and making them unblockable, that's insane. Luckily, it's a 4-drop with unimpressive stats, so that kind of speaks to me a decent balance. But if it's unanswered, then yeah, combat's gonna be complicated and frustrating. Kapala, Word and Waves. Kirov, because it was strictly better, but this one has the Relevance Crew type itself, himself, and yeah, if there will be a deck centered around those folks, then yeah, it will certainly be in them. Maybe like a 2-2 split, because in aggro matchups those abilities are kind of relevant. Versus Rebuke, so it's not quite upheaval, it's not quite evacuation, but yeah, because it's permanence, it's kind of interesting, and it's one-sided, so I don't know if it's better than Crush It Tentacles, because the surge on that thing was pretty big deal, getting an 8/8 while bouncing everything else. We'll see. I think it's not gonna be OP, but it's gonna be nice to have this option around in case we would really need an effect like that. And on 6, it's actually playable in theory. We'll get to see that. And now we get to 2 colors that actually impressed me the most, for the cards that have been officially released so far. So black and red. A lot of really good aggressive creatures, so I think that's one of the obvious directions when you start playtesting standard with the new set. First of all, this paladin is like really insane because, well, imagine an aggressive mirror, and then because of the flash, you can always cast it post Swipper, and that would be insane. Anything like Sweltering Suns to Fumigate, and then afterwards you cast this. That's brutal. Just for 2 mana, you get a like gigantic brick. I think this card would be just absurd in the right deck. It's actually nice as a trap against control, and nice in aggro mirrors, where you can also at the right moment get it pretty huge. So yeah, of course it needs certain timing, but the power level is there. Parley, 7-drop, Sorcery, well, Commander next. Tracker, I don't know. It will be a cyber tech, I guess. Against Mono Black, probably. Decent value card. If there will be something remotely reminding about Snapcaster, well, we're gonna have the Torrential Gearhulk still around, so that helps. I mean, the card helps against those strategies. Fleet Captain, well, it's not exactly like a Kurizath or Pia or not Pal Private, Rettel Master, I think that was the name. But yeah, it's even without the second ability, we're already having a good start, and I think overall it's really great actually. If it will be on free, then probably not gonna be that good. But on 2, I think it's just worth it any way you look at it. Just provides a lot of value, good mana sink, basically, hard to block because it has a condition, but it probably won't be that hard to fulfill. Relevance Riches actually might be playable in standard, because but probably in the sideboard. In aggro mirrors might be actually a real thing, because then you just keep on trading and stay alive and just pile counters on this thing. Well, not counters, I mean collect those tokens. Ruined Raider, not quite Dark Confident, but Dark Confident was a busted card. And yeah, I mean the Siphoner is still good, but for decks that don't really produce much energy, then that's probably pretty good. But then again, Siphoner like just drew cards. This one is conditional, and you also lose life. So I don't know. It depends. If you attacked with creature, no, actually you draw it anyway. Sorry, so misread the ability a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's actually good. You just need to connect, and actually, you don't necessarily need to connect. You just need to attack with something, which is actually not that hard to achieve. Another thing is to actually get there, to get through. Yeah, it's a pity that it's a free drop, but oh well. You can have those cards all the time. It's that's such a small cost. Contempt, well, it's 1 mana more than Hero's Downfall from Pharaoh's block, but then again it exiles and against a couple life, which might be crucial here and there. Just because it exiles, I'm actually fine with it being 4. Yeah, probably one of the premium removals from this set and for the format in autumn. Marauder, 7 mana, enough said. Sans Avatar, we've seen this a few days ago. I actually think it's good, but not that insane. It's probably not on the power level of Glorybringer, but it's still good. It's beefier and it doesn't freeze every now and then. So yeah, I do like the card. Question is whether it will be a staple. That's a big question, because triple ad is gonna be hard. That's gonna be biggest concern about it, I think. Not that it's a 6-drop. Lunary Storm, well, I think the card is good, but the question is it good enough for a standard? I think that it's legendary actually doesn't help it that much. So, well, we'll get to see. I won't be surprised if it sees actually a decent amount of play. But if it won't pick up that well, I won't be surprised either. Relevance Crew, on the other hand, is a hell of a card. So, basically, if you get lucky, if you build your deck correctly, so that its trigger actually is going to do its thing, then you're going to end up with 5/5 Trampler for 4. It also lets you loot a bunch. And next speaks to me as a powerhouse, actually. Just so much going on with this card. It's just all around crazy. No wonder it's a mythic, actually. That's something. So at least in limited, this card's not gonna get too ridiculous, because you're not gonna see it all that often, I hope. Star of Extinction, well, basically it's like Hour of a Station, but for 2 more. and you get some bonuses because of that. But then again, there is nothing like Boris Reckoner or Stuff Fatal or whatever, so there's no benefit to deal this absurd amount of damage anywhere. But it's probably a card with ideation, commander in mind, and so forth, where you can actually play everything what I just said, plus Blasphemous Act and so forth, and actually, you know, get proper value out of it. But this is not for standard turn, we're mainly talking about standard here. On Vacation, it's a enchantment for 6 that doesn't actually do something once it's cast, so yeah, not a standard thing. Skin Shifter might be a thing, just because look at it this way. If you have something massive like a Hydra, okay, the Skin Shifter is not gonna get counters out of it, but if you have some those weird free drop from black and red 4/4s and 5/5s, then all of a sudden this might look like a decent idea and decent card. But then again, you need something crazy on board that is gonna stay there for at least a couple turns for this be good. I don't know, let's see. We have a bunch of beef from green. That might not be as hard as it seems, because the next cards where we're stepping into green pile. So this Carnage Tyrant, this card is just ridiculous. Luckily it's a mythic also, so that's unlimited. You're not gonna extend your hands up in the air towards the sky and like asking whatever deity beings, like, why the heck did you have to face this kind of monstrosity? Well, it does basically everything. At least it's a second 6-drop, so that's the only positive thing about it when you're facing it. That's it. Once it's in play, you're in a lot of trouble. Thank God we have something like Doomfall at least, but then again we'll have to catch it with Doomfall. It's just ridiculous. Another crazy card, well, not as crazy as it was maybe in 2002 or 2003 and before that, but Tipper Champion basically reminds me of the Curian Triad, a thing from Invasion Log from 2001, and all the old extended decks, like Threshold and Miracle Grow, yeah, where that was basically your only green card and everything else was just blue, all the card drawing counters and bounce and so forth, and all the tricks. It's probably not as powerful nowadays. I think the Curian Drive was actually reprinted like in 10th edition or something like that, and it didn't really see much play. I don't know if such a card will actually see enough of play nowadays. Good part about it compared to Curian Dry is that this one triggers green spells too, but they have to be non-creature. But this means it triggers off the green pumps. So would that difference actually make it playable nowadays? We'll see. I have high hopes for it. I think it's gonna be pretty much good, no matter what strategy or what colors you're in, or what's your tribal choice. Basically, I think it's best in something like Timor mid-range, where you still have a relatively high spell count, and you have the pro-draw spells, you have the cheap red removals, you have counters to defend it, all those things. So I have high hopes. Okay, so next two cards are also pretty good, and I think we'll probably see play at some point, maybe not this season but the next one. My problem with those is that it competes with the bristling Hydra. They're all 4 drops, and you can slam them all into one deck. You're bound to choose some because you just cannot have your curve clogged like that. So yeah, my advice is to try them all out and see what fits the bill better, what you like more. There is a chance that you would just have like 4 Hydras and then I don't know, maybe like 1 of each main and 1 more of each in the sideboard, and kind of tweak your deck depending on what you're facing. We'll see. Maybe you start with Raptors main and Vanguard's sideboard because 3 toughness is much less exciting than 5. Sanctuary is gonna be a ridiculous sideboard card in those beefy teamer mid-range decks. Just more value. Probably especially really good in the mirror match, where all those lightnings are flying around and so on. Saboteur is a 7-drop creature. And now we have these interesting 4. And the Admiral and the Ixalan are definitely just EDH cards. And then the Waker Dwells and the Hostage Taker, I think, in my opinion, is gonna be powerhouses in Standard. Both are just ridiculous cards. Luckily, they're just rares and non-mythics. Well, they're not like that insane. Hostage Takers can be pretty peculiar. Basically, if you have a bunch of mana, I don't think there will be a gap. I know, there will be a gap. Okay, so with Hostage Shaker, you can just say, okay, trigger on the stack, then kill the Taker so that they don't get to cast it. Yeah, so there is still a gap to prevent all those terrible things. Waker is gonna be good. It's a great mana sink. Of course, it's worse than having those 5 mana Nisas, but it's still alright. The Shanna, because it's a 7-drop and the legendary, well, yeah, Commander. So, Sorcerer's Spyglass. Well, it's 1 mana more than Python Nettle, but you get the extra information for the extra mana. I don't know, so let's put it this way. It's really great to have this in Standard, but I think in Eternal formats you're still probably playing with Python Needles because you have the knowledge of the information, and in Modern and in Legacy, where you want such an effect, you actually don't have that many options, so you normally set it in because of very few very specific cards. But in Standard, things might diversify and fluctuate, and there would be more things to take care of. So I think Spyglass is definitely better for Standard, but probably not as good at Python Nettle for Eternal formats, although being 2 and not 1 might be relevant when you consider Chalice of the Wood into this picture. Language Banner, well, it's 2 mana more than things like Holotramp, and Hol actually set color, not creature type. And even though drawing cards is nice, but then again, in constructed formats, you're never gonna play a 5 mana curse artifact for team pumps, unless it's something like Coat of Arms that basically acted as an overrun that would just straight out win you the game if it's cast and if you had a good board. But this one doesn't do that, so it's not really a constructed card. Well, technically it is, but then we're talking about all those Highlander formats. And as for the lands, I love the artwork. It's nice to have nice dual lands back, but well, we've been accustomed to things like that for many years by now, so not gonna expand much on that. But yeah, thanks for watching. Until the next sale, bye folks.